They they said my conduct is detrimental to the team, right? Why didn't they just say we don't agree with his stance on LGBTQ? Why didn't they say that? But how is it conduct detrimental to the team? What did I do to the team? What did I do to the players? I did nothing but practice with them, play with them, pass the ball to them, good teammate to them.
Jaden Ivey's story took a wild turn the moment the Chicago Bulls decided they were done with him. One minute, he was still a young NBA guard trying to fight his way back from injury and hold on to his career. The next minute, he was at the center of one of the biggest basketball debates on the internet. People were not just talking about his game anymore. They were talking about his words, his faith, his pain, and whether the league had turned its back on him. That is what made this story hit so hard. This was not just about a player getting waived. This felt bigger. It felt like a full collapse happening in public, with every moment being watched, clipped, shared, and argued over by thousands of people online. What made it even more shocking was how fast everything seemed to fall apart. Jaden Ivey was once seen as one of the bright young guards in the league. He had talent, speed, confidence, and the kind of attacking style that made fans believe he could become a real star. He came into the NBA with big hopes, big support, and a strong family name behind him. He had already shown flashes of being the kind of player who could take over a game in a few minutes. So when his name started trending for reasons that had nothing to do with basketball, it caught a lot of people off guard. Fans who once talked about his future on the court were suddenly debating his future in the league at all. To understand how things got here, you have to go back to the beginning. Jaden Ivey was born into a family where sports were not just important, they were part of daily life. His mother was a high-level basketball player and coach. His father played football at a high level too. He grew up around gyms, around practices, around coaches, around players, and around pressure. For most kids, sports are a hobby. For him, sports were the family world. From the outside, that kind of life looks perfect. People see the training, the talent, the spotlight, and they assume everything is set up for success. But a lot of times, the outside story and the inside story are not the same thing at all. As Jaden got older, he became the kind of young player schools dreamed about. He could score, he could drive, he could create, and he had that burst that made defenders look slow. In high school, he became one of the biggest names in his class. Colleges wanted him badly. Big programs saw him as a future star. He had the skill, the body, and the name value. When he chose Purdue, it felt like the next clear step in a path that had been building for years. And at Purdue, he did what stars do. He got better. He became more dangerous. He showed he could play on a bigger stage. By the time the NBA draft came around, there was no doubt that Jaden Ivey was going near the top. Then came the dream moment, draft night. Detroit took him 5th overall. That should have been the start of a smooth rise. That should have been the beginning of the long NBA climb, where a young player learns, grows, gets stronger, and slowly turns promise into stardom. And for a while, it looked like that was exactly what was happening. He had games where he looked electric. He had stretches where you could see why people believed in him so much. He was fast with the ball, brave going to the rim, and never afraid of the moment. Even when he made mistakes, people were willing to live with him because the upside was obvious. The feeling around him was simple. Keep developing, and this kid is going to be special. But behind the basketball journey, there was clearly another battle going on. Jaden began speaking more openly about deep personal pain, about not feeling peace, and about a search for meaning that went beyond the court. That part of the story changed the way many people looked at him. Suddenly, he was not just a young guard trying to find his game. He was also a young man trying to understand himself. He talked about trying to fill empty spaces in his life and still feeling lost. He spoke about calling out to Jesus during one of his lowest moments. That became a key part of how he explained his life. In his mind, his faith was not a side note. It became the center of everything. That kind of change can be powerful, but it can also become complicated when it happens under the spotlight. In sports, fans usually love faith talk when it stays short and simple.
That's fine. If he don't, that's fine. I'm gonna glorify him. But what I've done, like I have nothing to prove. The NBA was what it was. But you see, before I came to the Lord Jesus Christ, the NBA was everything to me. I didn't know God. I didn't know Jesus when I came to the NBA.
A quick thank you to God after the game.
A verse in a social media bio, a calm statement about staying grounded. That is the kind of thing people are used to. But Jaden's situation did not stay in that safe space. His words became more direct, more intense, more public, more personal. And once that happened, the reaction changed too. Some people saw a young man speaking truth as he believed it. Other people saw someone going too far, saying things that would divide people instead of bring them together. Even while all of that was happening, his basketball career was still moving. His early NBA years had real promise. He showed enough to make Detroit fans think he could become a core piece. His numbers were solid, his growth felt real, and when the 2024-25 season started, it looked like he was hitting another level. His scoring was up, his shooting looked better, the game seemed to be slowing down for him in a good way. It felt like he was turning from a young talent into a real NBA weapon. Then everything changed in one awful moment. On January 1st, 2025, he went down with a serious leg injury. Just like that, the momentum was gone. Injuries do more than hurt the body. They can mess with rhythm, confidence, timing, and identity. A player who is used to flying past defenders and living in attack mode suddenly has to sit still, rehab, wait, and wonder. For some players, that is just frustrating. For others, it becomes emotional and spiritual too. Jaden seemed to go even deeper into his faith during this time. Rehab was not just physical for him. It looked like it became part of a bigger personal battle. He was trying to heal, trying to believe, trying to stay strong, and trying to hold on to the idea that his story was still heading somewhere good. But the longer recovery goes, the harder it is to stay steady. Then came another setback. Just when it looked like he might fully return, more physical problems showed up. More missed time, more questions, more doubt. In sports, timing matters almost as much as talent. A player can have all the skill in the world, but if injuries keep stopping the story at the worst moments, the whole picture changes. Instead of talking about what he might become, people start talking about whether he can stay available. That is a brutal shift, especially for a young player. It's one thing to be doubted because of your game. It's another thing to be doubted because your body refuses to let the game move forward. Then the trade happened. Detroit moved him, and Chicago became his new home. For a lot of players, a trade feels like a reset button. New city, new coaches, new system, new chance. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what a career needs. And when Jaden got to Chicago, there was at least some hope that the change could help him. Maybe a new role would unlock him. Maybe better health would bring him back. Maybe all the noise would fade and basketball would become the focus again. But instead, the problems followed him. He did not get much time, he dealt with more physical issues, he could not build momentum. And when a player cannot stay on the court, every other part of his life starts getting looked at harder. That's when the microphone became more powerful than the box score. Once he was no longer making headlines for what he did in games, he started making headlines for what he said online. And this is where the story truly exploded. Jaden went live on Instagram and began sharing his thoughts at length, not in a quick clip, not in a clean interview, but in long, open, emotional streams where he said exactly what was on his mind. He talked about religion, the world, sin, the NBA, and values he believed the league was pushing. These were not small comments, these were strong statements, and once they spread, there was no putting them back. The reaction was instant because the NBA is one of the most public and image-aware leagues in the world. Teams care about winning, yes, but they also care deeply about message, culture, and public image.
And he said he sat me down for a reason. What good is it driving the store with the Ferrari you only get to drive that Ferrari for the time being. You're not gonna sit and drive a Ferrari for 10 hours. When has anyone driven a Ferrari for 10 hours? No one. But still, like what good is it gonna do for you on Judgment Day if you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ and you don't obey his commandments?
When a player starts saying things that can be seen as attacking groups of people or creating tension inside that image, the pressure rises fast. It becomes a team issue. It becomes a league issue. It becomes a media issue. And it becomes a business issue too. That is why this story moves so quickly. It was never just about one player speaking his mind. It was about what happens when those words crash straight into the values and public face of a major sports league. Then came the move that changed everything. The Bulls waived him for conduct detrimental to the team. Just reading those words tells you how serious the situation had become. Teams do not use language like that lightly. When they do, it means the relationship is broken. It means they believe something has crossed the line. For Jaden, that was the moment his private struggle became a full public fall. He was no longer just an injured player with questions around him. He was now a waived player with controversy attached to his name. And once that happens, every team in the league starts asking harder questions before they even think about giving you another chance. What made the moment even bigger was what happened right after. Instead of going quiet, Jaden went back online and spoke again. He pushed back on the idea that he had done wrong. He said he had been honest, professional, and true to his beliefs. He felt he was being punished for speaking about Jesus and for refusing to back down. That made the divide even sharper. His supporters saw courage. His critics saw a refusal to take responsibility. Some people said he was standing firm in faith, no matter the cost. Others said he was creating problems and then acting shocked when consequences followed. That is why the debate around him became so loud. People were not just arguing about a player. They were arguing about belief, freedom, speech, respect, and where the line should be. There was also another layer to all of this that made the story feel sad instead of just dramatic. Coaches and people around the situation began speaking with concern, not only anger. Some comments made it clear there were worries about Jaden as a person, not just Jaden as a player. And that matters, because once a story becomes viral, people often forget there's a real human being at the center of it. They react to clips, not pain. They react to headlines, not history. But Jaden had already spoken publicly about personal trauma, deep struggle, and searching for peace. That does not excuse every word, but it does remind people that this story may not be as simple as hero or villain, right or wrong. At the same time, it is also fair to say that the NBA is not built to carry endless drama from players who are not producing. That is the cold truth of professional sports. Superstars get more room. Young, injured players fighting for their place get less. Teams will always say the same thing in nicer words, but the meaning is simple. If you're going to bring attention, it better be the right kind, or you better be talented enough that people feel forced to manage it. That is why this situation hit Jaden so hard. He was not in a strong position. He was hurt. He was not fully established. He had not locked in star status. So when controversy came, he did not have much protection. And that leads to the biggest question of all. What happens next? From a talent view, there is still a reason for teams to look at him. Guards with his speed and ability do not grow on trees. If he gets healthy, if he stays focused, and if he can calm the noise around him, somebody may decide the upside is worth the risk. In this league, talent always gives you a chance. Maybe not the perfect chance, maybe not a big contract right away, but a chance. And for a player his age, that matters. One healthy summer, one quiet stretch, one training camp where he looks sharp and people can start seeing him differently again. But the other side of that is just as real. Teams are not only signing the jumper, the speed, and the stats. They are signing the whole package. They will ask whether he can fit in a locker room. They will ask whether he can stay healthy. They will ask whether he can keep the focus on basketball. They will ask whether he can say what he believes without setting everything on fire around him. Front offices do not just want talent. They want calm. They want control. They want predictability. And right now, fair or unfair, Jaden Ivey does not feel predictable.
That can scare teams away, even when the skill is still there. This is what makes his story so hard to look away from. There is real pain in it. There is real talent in it. There is real belief in it. But there is also real chaos in it. Every part of the story pulls in a different direction. One part says this is a gifted young player who has been hit by injuries at the worst times. Another part says this is a man whose faith became so strong that he was willing to lose his place in the league over it. Another part says this is a warning about how fast a rising career can slide when the game stops being the only thing people are talking about. And all of those parts are fighting for space in the same story. What is also striking is how much of this happened while he is still so young. 24 is young in life. It is young in sports, too. Most players at that age are still building, still learning, still making mistakes, still trying to figure out who they are. But most do not have every move judged in public, while millions of people argue over what they mean. That pressure can break people. It can harden people. Or it can send them further into whatever belief system gives them the strength to keep going. With Jaden, it seems like the deeper the pressure got, the stronger his language became. He did not shrink, he leaned in harder. And whether people admired that or feared it, they definitely paid attention. The reason this story keeps spreading is because it touches something larger than basketball. People